All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. The question we're going to throw out right now, maybe it's a little bit unfair, but we can ask it anyway. What would a successful season look like for the Colorado Avalanche next year? We'll get into that. And of course, a season grade. This one's going to Alex Newhook. I think there's been some people looking forward to this one. New episode Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. I am Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And why not subscribe to our subtext? Link to that in the show notes below. Subscribe, and you can chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. So we will get to, if you look at our rundown over on YouTube, right over there, we're going to talk about these cup finals, or cup final, excuse me. And is it reaching people? Like, that's what you always want, is the game to be expanding and bringing in new fans. Is this cup final doing that? Ratings might say another story. So we'll talk about that, and we'll get to Alex Newhook's grade. But I also want to say, we're recording this. I think it's halftime right now of the Nuggets game. Is it right?
Yes, it is.
And I'm, everydayers know I'm not I'm not an NBA follower, but I am finding it interesting that Nugget fans don't seem to be too happy with the reffing situation in the first half. You've been watching it. Do they have a gripe here, or
they have a gripe, but the Nuggets can play better. They should do better, and it's Ball Arena. Referees they get into this mentality when they get to Ball Arena. They just don't know how to call things anymore.
It's the altitude, the brain cells, just So hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, they have won and wrapped it up, and the Nuggets are NBA champs. Even though I don't follow the sport, it would obviously be great for the Denver area again to have a championship team.
Bring it in.
But what we're going to start with is our still defending championship Colorado Avalanche until somebody unseats them. We've been talking for a couple of years now. Like, they always throw out that term, like championship window. Mm-hmm. And there's a handful of teams that have a championship window. And a lot of people felt like the Avalanche were in that window, and they won one. And now this offseason will be very interesting when you have the kind of superstars and top end talent that they do. I don't think many people are feeling like they're going to fall out of that window. They might not be the favorites going into next season, depending on how this offseason goes. But the question I threw out in the beginning, I think it's fun to ask this twice. We can ask it now before any move has been made, before you've signed a single contract. And then we can ask it again, like right before the season starts, when we know what the roster is going to be. And maybe that answer changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, with the guys that they have signed, which the names, you have Cale Makar signed, you have Nathan MacKinnon signed, you have Mikko Rantanen signed, you have Georgiev signed, you have, like, the nucleus is not going anywhere. So that makes up a big aspect of the team. So do the depth guys, which are the guys that you need to find, and a 2C. So as they stand right now, like, you look towards next year, what is it would be considered a successful season for the Avalanche? Is the standard Stanley Cup or bust, or is it, with the way that the cap is, and it's a flat cap only going up by $1 million, we'll do the best we can, but we can't guarantee Stanley Cup results?
Well, looking at this year's exit, you won the Central. Congratulations. Here's your award.
Mm-hmm.
But you got knocked out in the first round. As the defending, let's say it as many times as we can before the cup is over, as the defending Stanley Cup champions,
mm-hmm.
going into this year, this was one of those kind of, everybody kind of drunk off the high of winning the cup. Let's go back to back. Let's do it. We have the team. Let's go back to back. So your expectation going into this year was kind of justifiably cup or bust. You had the team to do it. They just proven that they could do it. So you thought cup or bust. First round, you were knocked out. Now where do the Avalanche sit? When we have been the media darlings for a little while, it's always been the easy pick to say, yeah, at the beginning of the year, I'm picking the Colorado Avalanche. Look at this roster. How can you not? It's only paid off once. Now there's a lot of questions with this roster construction. You still, like you mentioned, Chris, the nucleus is there. How good is that nucleus as it stands? And what would be successful? I would, you remember in the 90s when the Atlanta Braves used to win the division every year, right? But that was about it. I think with this nucleus of the Colorado Avalanche, the Central year in, year out should be expected.
Yeah. I mean, who's really like gonna threaten that? Top dog in the Central.
Dallas.
Yeah, what? I mean, they should have a good team next year. You don't know with Minnesota. You don't know with Nashville.
And then Bedard in Chicago.
You do know, yeah, but they're not doing anything right now. They have a lot of building to do there. You know, with Arizona. You would be confident that with the players that their superstars are better than the other superstars in as a whole.
Yeah.
In the Central, like you would feel confident that you can get the Central. Definitely. I think Dallas will push you. And maybe some team has a good offseason with who their signings are, and maybe they, creep up on you. But still, I think you would feel like the Central is absolutely 100% in play. The playoffs, that's where things get interesting because anything can happen. Clearly, we've seen it on multiple fronts. Look at what Florida did. You know what I mean? So you truly, that's the beauty of the sport is you just never know what happens once you get into the playoffs. And I think from the Avalanche perspective, for them, they're gonna say no. Like this team is constructed to compete for a Stanley Cup. And that will always be true for the next handful of seasons. And it's different because you, like I said earlier, I don't think you're going into this season feeling like you are head and shoulders above everybody else. You're going to have some competition. Things got to go your way. Things have to go your way in the playoffs. They didn't this year. They didn't during the regular season with injuries, but you overcame them in the regular season. You got to do that in the playoffs too. So, and maybe you look back at this year because a lot of these guys, like the guys are just listed, like your nucleus. They don't want to. They remember. They're going to remember getting knocked out in the first round. So you build off of that stuff, and that could be a galvanizing thing for the guys that are still back there next year and say like, okay, this is where we were at next year. Let's not have a repeat of that. Maybe you up your game up a little bit. So it's kind of, like I said, it's a difficult question to answer right now just because you don't know the full formation of the team. But from a franchise standpoint, they're going for it. This is not something they're like, well, let's just get into the playoffs. No way. Not with the players that you have, not with the Cale Makars of the world and Nathan McKinnon. Like they're going to want to win it year in and year out. If they can, that's another question.
And I think losing to Seattle in the first round was a little bit of a wake-up call. Kind of bring you back down to earth, remind you, hey, you still have to work to get back to where you were. And I think from this point forward, like we kind of agreed, like the Central is easy. Well, Vegas can't keep this team together financially. Next year, some of those pieces will have to move. The team that just knocked Colorado out, they're going to refine that team and put it back together. So you want to keep an eye on Seattle and what they're going to do. I think going forward, that second round is where you're going to be expected to be. You want to say, with this nucleus, there will not be another first round exit. This team just can't do that again.
Yeah. They are better than that.
Yes.
They are better than that. Like, I think, And I guess to answer the question, would be a successful season? Anytime you make it to the Cup final, I feel like that's a successful season. For Florida, um, you know, could you have said getting past Boston was a successful season for them? Nobody expected you to do that. So even if it works out the way that we kind of feel it will with Vegas winning this whole thing, is it a successful season for Florida? Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah.
You can't have that hard line of like it's only successful for one team and the one team that wins it. Like you have to take things into consideration. Of course, that's the goal. Of course it is. But you can't tell me Florida's not going to play off that for next year if they do end up losing this thing and say, like, hey, we still got a little bit more to give. That was a successful season for us. We were out of the playoffs. Pittsburgh needed to beat two bottom feeding teams to keep us out of the playoffs, and they couldn't do that. We got in by a gift, and we took advantage of it by making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Congratulations. That's good in my book. Do you want more? Absolutely. And for the Avalanche, it's unacceptable to lose in the first round. And I just feel like they're in this mindset of it's unacceptable to lose in the second or third round. So, to a man, they'll tell you if they don't make to the Stanley Cup final, it's not a successful season. I kind of would be on board with that, man. Like I feel like you are kind of in the driver's seat with the what you've created and these draft picks that you've had that have worked out, the Nathan McKinnons of the world, the Landeskog, so obviously we know what's going on with him, the Mikko Rantanen, and the moves that you've made and bringing in Val Nichushkin, and hopefully he's back there next year. You've made all these moves. Why? To go win Stanley Cups or at least compete for them. And just having a season where you had a lot of injuries, which you overcame. You can't tell me the Avalanche aren't feeling like if we can stay healthy, that's a big if, and get some guys to come in and replace some guys who are leaving. You can't tell me this team isn't feeling confident that they can make another run at it.
They should make another run at it. And it's honestly, with the nucleus, it's expected from this point forward.
It is. Yep. Something we'll talk about tomorrow is something that Elliot Friedman was talking about on 32 Thoughts podcast, and said Eric Johnson, no plans on retiring. What's that mean? We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But right now we are going to hear from eBay Motors, and then we'll get to Alex Newhook's season grade. But for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your car to the My Garage tab and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only, and exclusions apply. All right. Alex Newhook, a lot's been talked about this young man over the course of this last season. And he is next up for our season grade. So if you are watching over on YouTube, we're going to put that up right there. And for those listening in your car, at home, wherever you may don't have the video quality, you got C's on social media, YouTube 60%, Twitter 58%, Instagram 50%. And this is one of the ones I really wish I could have more fields, because I'm sure people would be going plus minus crazy. But Kyle and I have the ability to do that. And we both went D+ for Alex Newhook. You look at the stats there, nothing really jumps out at you except for a 30-point season, which for a bottom six guy, you'd be happy about. But Alex Newhook's not supposed to be a bottom six guy. And he's had 31 points, in the stats that we put up include the postseason. His stats for the regular season, 30 points. So he had a singular assist in the 7 games played. He played every single game the Avalanche played last year, regular season and postseason. So again, he's one of those guys that you can't sit here and say like, well, he wasn't given the opportunity. Avalanche were decimated with injuries, not him. And we all know what Jared Bednar said at the beginning of the year. He was going to be the 2C guy up until the trade deadline. They were going to go through the growing pains. That experiment ended pretty quickly. And by the end of the year, he found himself on the 4th line. And I will say it again, Kyle, I always in my head for these grades think, what was the expectation? The expectations, maybe they were a little bit too high. Maybe they were a little bit too lofty. But you would have liked to have seen Alex Newhook try to take the reins of that or do something better than he actually did. And because of that, he gets a D+ from me.
And I like that you brought up the point that these stats on the graphics, if you're watching on YouTube, also it's the playoffs as well. Mm-hmm. Did you know last year, only playing 71 games, Alex Newhook had 33 points in the regular season?
Yeah.
So this is a step.
Less games.
Yeah, this is a step down when you are given the keys to, hey, 2C, Nazem Kadri has left. He's gone to Calgary. Alex Newhook, it is your time to shine. And you took a step back. The only I would have went with a flat D, but congratulations on playing all 82 games. That's a Xbox achievement, my friend. Congratulations. Not many people can do that for the Colorado Avalanche, but you did. It was
tough, man, because and if you want to compare the last 2 seasons, let's do that. Because like Kyle said, 33 points last year in 71 games, 30 points in 82 games. So 11 more games, 3 less points. Last year, he was a plus-minus of 11. This is just regular season right now. Last year was a plus-minus of 11. This year, he was a flat 0. His power play points. So he had 3 power play goals last year. He only had 1 this year. He had 6 total power play points last year, and he only had 2 this year. Here's where he improved. He had 3 more shots than last year, 113 to 116. His shooting percentage went up by 0.6%. He was 11.5 last year, and he was 12.1 this year. And where he improved the most is the one area that we always kind of rag on the Avalanche for. That's face-off percentage.
Yeah, he was like 40%.
He was 34 last year. He was 41.3 this year. So he improved there. So thank you for that, Alex Newhook, because we were
he was prepping for that 2C role.
Yeah. So it was a step down for him. And you if you had just improved on all those stats, but couldn't take the 2C position, then fine. You're still learning. You're still progressing. You're still, a young prospect. And I'll say this, I'm not giving up on Alex Newhook. I know a lot of people are, and I know a lot of people want him in trade packages to go get a 2C. I don't feel like that's going to happen right now, but because I just don't feel like the Avalanche are going to give up on him. I honestly like his game. I think he is crafty with the puck. He's got speed. He's got skill. It's the word you throw around all the time, Kyle, and that's consistency. He just doesn't have it right now. And are we expecting just too much from him at this stage in his career? If we never said you're the 2C until the trade deadline, and if we did say, no, Alex Newhook is a bottom 6 guy right now, with the expectation in the next few years he will be the 2C, are we still feeling the way we're feeling about Alex Newhook?
Honestly, we're not expecting too much. We expected the same production from the year before in a bigger role, playing every game, and you took a step back. Like, we just wanted the base level, and we didn't get that. And for a 16th overall pick, you would expect more. There would be a little bit more pressure. And Chris, you mentioned it, like, he has the skill set to do it. And we're not asking too much. We're asking him to contribute and put games together if you're out there game in, game out, you should be stringing things together. You should be getting momentum and a flow. And when Newhook is in that flow, he's really, really good. But for some reason, he's just not there. And to go all the way back from Bednar publicly making a statement, you are the 2C, to fourth line just kind of meandering towards the end of the year, that's not what you want to see. You want to see better going into next year, but you're going to be watching with kind of this really short leash on, okay, we've given you every opportunity. If you can't step up in this moment, we will find somebody who can.
And I don't know if I mentioned game-winning goals. Last year he had 5, and this year he had 3. So, and you know, you like you said, you played every single game. You're on the second unit power play. And I know the second unit only gets 30 seconds, maybe sometimes up to a minute. You're not getting as much opportunity as the first unit, clearly. But even on that second unit, like you that's all you put up was 2 points. 2 points and you were on it for the whole year. So yeah, I mean, it was just, and I'm sure he would tell you he's not happy with this season. I can almost guarantee you. So that's why I'm not throwing in the towel on him. See how he responds. And maybe some people don't even want that. Maybe some people are just like, no, we went through this with Tyson Jost.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that again. So, and I get it, but they're 2 different players. They're 2 different guys. They're 2 different skill sets. But the one thing that they have in common is they're a first-round pick, and a lot of was expected of them. You didn't get it with Tyson Jost. Don't automatically assume that Alex Newhook's going to be a carbon copy of that. The jury is still out for me on Alex Newhook. I still like him. And like you said, like you've seen glimpses of, wow, this guy's got some talent. Let's see if we can bring it out of him before we just totally give up on him.
And see, the thing is, like the everydayers who have been listening to every grade that we have given, we've been giving better grades to lesser names, honestly.
Oh, sure.
And for Newhook to take this kind of hit with a grade, it's because we were scaling like Malgin. What could he have done? And we're talking about like McDermott and Eller, like their contributions. And could you imagine if they would have put it together over 82 games? Newhook gave us an 82 game perfect sample size, and it was a step back from less games last year. It's very disappointing. And I don't know what you have to change going into next year, because you had every opportunity to step up and move forward. You had the lineup. You didn't have people in your way because everybody was injured. So you want to see Newhook step up. And I know both of us, we know he's got it in him.
Sure.
But the patience. Yeah. And you brought up Jost. That's what keeps sitting in my mind with Alex Newhook. And it's just, I cross my eyes and that 18 turns into a 17 and I'm just,
So we'll see how the offseason goes for Alex Newhook. And to be honest, man, like he's one of the guys I am looking forward to watching next year to see how he responds to a step back season. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's see here. One last thing we wanted to get to today, and that is this Stanley Cup Final. It's not 100% in the bag yet, but 3-1 is not insurmountable. But they've been good games, minus the first couple. But the big question is, you heard it going into the Stanley Cup Final. And like, is this a final that is going to bring viewers? Is going to bring people on? And whenever you don't have one of the big market teams in a cup final, then it just becomes about like the matter, like what can you sell?
Yeah.
And maybe you can sell Vegas because it's Vegas, and they're obviously one of the newer teams, and for them to be there for the second time in their existence, that is a good selling point. With the Panthers, I feel like it's like Kachuk, and that's really it.
Bobrovsky.
Yeah, but you can't really sell that to the
The casual
average
fan. Yeah.
fan, the casual fan. Um, and I think the ratings are showing that right now.
Yeah.
The ratings on this are down, and they're about half of what they were in last year's Cup final with the Avs and the Lightning. And it doesn't surprise me because I kind of feel like that final with the Avs and Lightning, like that got some people interested. It was, the first year of it was on ESPN, first of all. So that, they're alternating between ESPN and TNT. You had the Lightning going for 3 in a row. So people are going to want to watch that. Cale Makar was becoming a household name. You had star power on both teams, with Vasilevsky clearly on Vegas, and all those other guys that they had, clearly all the guys on that was going to get good ratings, and it did. This seems to be struggling a little bit, even though the games have been good. They've been good games, but this Stanley Cup final, there's a lot of chippiness going on, and I wonder if sometimes people say oh, I tune in for that, but I think it makes people tune out as well.
Yeah. The Avs and Lightning series, we had the 2 blowout games in the middle, and the games were respectful all the way through.
Yeah,
and there's a little bit of goonery in these finals, and it's hard to, not just because we're Locked On Avalanche, but last year was probably one of the best matchups for a Stanley Cup final we've had in about a decade. To knock off a three-peat, a potential three-peat, and finally the crowning of Nathan MacKinnon, Gabe Landeskog, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, these guys that everybody always likes to talk about, they're finally champions. Cale Makar walking out with every piece of hardware. It's beautiful. It's a great chance for ESPN to tell stories and play the music and fanfare and all this wonderful stuff. And going into this final, it's Vegas and Florida, 2 non-traditional hockey markets, where it's always sunny and desert. Nothing screams hockey like sunny and desert, but that's what you get. And then you get chippiness and goon kind of Kachuckiness. And then it feels like Florida's run out of gas. And Vegas is just kind of doing what they have to do to get through the cup. And I haven't seen commercials for the final, the Stanley Cup. I could turn on any social media, any digital device that's plugged up to the internet, and I'm getting an NBA Finals ad. I have to look for, that's right, there's not a Stanley Cup game on tonight. I forgot, because guess what? It's not being told to me.
Wow. And I'll have to take your word for that, because if at any point during the day on my television it's basically Bluey and some sort of cartoon on Disney Junior. So I don't really have the regular television on during throughout the day, but I don't need it. I know when the game is on, and I will go watch it because this is what we do, right?
Exactly.
But you're that's a problem. That is a big problem if you're not inundated just with finals ads, because and I haven't seen NBA ones, but again, I'm not looking for them. But I probably 100% agree with you in that. Yeah, they're probably everywhere. They're probably everywhere in terms of ads. And again, this is another. You're probably getting those the Stanley Cup final commercials on TNT, but how do you they have other channels that are within the TNT umbrella. I hope they're showing it on there too. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the advertising world, so.
Well, I bring that up because let's just say I'm not a hockey. Let's just pretend I'm not a hockey guy,
right?
And I'm Joe Schmo turning on my TV. What makes me we just talked about how this final is kind of a step down from last year. What is making me want to watch, take time out of my night and turn on the Stanley Cup final if it's not being told to me? If I don't have 3 different apps telling me every bit of NHL news, and I'm watching old games from the 70s and 80s in my spare time,
right?
if I'm just turning on the TV, how do I know the Stanley Cup's even existing? If it's even going on, if I see it just scroll across the bottom, I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. I'm going to chalk that up with a soccer score or a random baseball game, and I'm not going to give much credence to it.
And you know, every morning, like when I'm getting ready for work, I'm going just, you know, making my breakfast, making my coffee. I have the Today Show just on in the corner, right?
Mhm.
And I'm always up by the time that starts first thing in the morning. Every single game in the NBA playoffs, they don't lead with it, but it's in their opening, like on today's episode of Today's Show, and they talk about all things they're going to talk about. They always put an NBA game in there, and they don't even have NBA.
Yeah,
It's like Today's Show's on NBC, NBA Finals are on ABC or ESPN. They don't even have it, and they're updating people and within the first 10 minutes of the Today Show, they are summarizing what happened in the most recent NBA game.
Mhm.
And there is zero mention of the NHL on that. I'm not saying that there should be, but that's where the NHL is lacking, is they're not even getting, you know, all of like these other outlets that don't have the rights to it to talk about their sport. And clearly the NBA is bigger than the NHL, but that's how you grow it. You just throw it out there and have hosts talk about it for a minute and just say, like, this is what happened in the NHL Stanley Cup Final. And then that just puts in people's heads, oh, maybe I should go watch that the next time it's on. But you're not even getting that right now.
And this is honestly, like, real quick, this is not even the NBA Finals everybody wanted. Everybody wanted Boston and LA, and you didn't get that. This is the consolation finals, and it's still wiping the floor.
It's still doing good.
So
yep.
The NHL has to step it up and be more in the ear of the casual fan.
Yep. They got to figure out a way to do that. That you just can't keep relying on your hardcore fan base to keep bailing you out. You have to. And now with Messi signing, everybody thinks like, oh, MLS is going to take over the NHL. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're going to get a bump. They're going to get a bump. Like, yeah. So bottom line is the NHL's got to do a better job. They really do. They got to figure this out. They can't just keep going through the motions with it. So what do you think? Fire away in the comment section. Would love to hear some feedback on how you think these cup finals are going and how the NHL is handling it and promoting it. So, all right, that'll wrap it up for today. Like we said, we'll be back tomorrow, talk about the EJ situation and anything else that maybe breaks over in Avalanche land. Until then, he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.